Cyberpunk has been out for over 9 months at this point, and I absolutely adore the game, even though it is a buggy mess. The game is undoubtedly very buggy. But today I wanted to talk about the worst thing that you can do for Cyberpunk, and that is booting it off of a hard drive. Booting Cyberpunk off of a hard drive is like going to work on 3 hours of sleep. You weren't going to enjoy work anyway. It's definitely not going to be better on 3 hours of sleep. Now, I don't want to say that even with an M.2 NVMe, you're not going to run into bugs on Cyberpunk. The game is undoubtedly buggy. But I really like the game. I think it's a great game. I think anybody who likes the open world RPG aspect of, New Vegas or Skyrim can really find enjoyment in Cyberpunk. I feel like the story is there. It's just there's some aspects of the game that are definitely broken, but I really feel like people should enjoy the game, and to do so, do not boot it off of a hard drive. That's the only thing I can say for you is do not boot it off of a hard drive, because you will find any and all of the bugs you could possibly find. So for this test, I have taken the liberty to rip the hard drive out of my PS4, because I feel like the biggest problem with the PS4 is its hard drive, and more so its slow hard drive. This is a laptop 2.5-inch 5400 RPM 500 gigabyte hard drive. This is the kind of cheap hard drive you would find if you bought an external hard drive from like Walmart for 50 bucks. It's not fast. It's cheap, but it's not fast. So I've taken the liberty and a lot of time to boot Windows 10 on here, install Steam, install the monitoring software just to figure out what the heck's going on. And with that being said, I have a system set up here that is among some of the best hardware money can buy. We have a Radeon RX 6900 XT, we have a 5800X, we have 16 gigabytes of 3800 megahertz RAM running at CL14. This system can easily push over 200 FPS in Cyberpunk at 1080p. The question is, what happens when you try to get all of these textures on the screen, all these assets from the hard drive, and it physically can't do it? Because I don't want to act like I know everything about hard drives. I don't even like to act like I know everything about computers. I just like trying to understand how these things interact, because that's the main point of this channel for me, is trying to better understand how certain hardware aspects interact with their software or other pieces of hardware. In theory, on a hard drive, you have a whole bunch of disks, and you can have things stored in different parts of the disk. And that leads to your random read-write speeds being kind of slow, because the mechanical arm has to go search out and find those pieces of information. The hard drive knows where it is, it just has to go and find it. So when you're playing a game like Cyberpunk, you have a whole bunch of different assets that could be, in theory, I don't know, again, exactly how hard drives work, and I'm sure defragmenting can better this situation, but the game could be stored over here, a little bit over here, a little bit over here, to where when you're playing the game and the hard drive has to find the data for, say, a random asset like a character model or the floor, you can end up clipping through the floor because the game, you've passed a point where it hasn't gotten that asset for you yet, and you just end up falling through the map. So I hope you can kind of understand where I'm coming from here. I really don't know if this is the specific case, but from what I understand from hard drives, I really feel like that's something that can happen, where this one, because it has a fresh install of Windows 10, it might be better organizing everything. But say you have a little bit of some stuff here, you got a little bit of stuff here, you got a little bit of stuff here, it has to find a place to put this game, and it can't always line it up perfectly to where it can find everything exactly in line. And that's really what I feel like is a big problem with Cyberpunk and hard drives, where something like a solid state drive, it knows exactly where that piece of data is, and it can go find it like immediately. Granted, not all solid state drives can be that fast and have really good random read-write speeds, so even if you had a solid state drive, you could still run into problems with Cyberpunk in that you can't find the data fast enough, because this game has so many textures and there's so many assets in this game. There's so much detail in the game I know people will meme about how other games have equal levels of assets and textures, but I feel like something was lost in the process of making Cyberpunk to where they needed to get it done, and they weren't exactly concerned with making the game load assets quite perfectly enough. So anyway, let's fire up the system and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So first up, because I am booting off of the same drive that I'm playing on, well, one, it's a hard drive, so it's gonna take forever to boot into Windows 10. Seriously, if you're using a hard drive to boot your operating system in 2021, do whatever you can to put your operating system on some form of solid state storage. So just to give you guys an idea of just how slow this hard drive is, I'm gonna open up Task Manager, and Task Manager is gonna take a few seconds to load here. But when you switch over to the Performance tab, any day now, patience is very key when using a hard drive. We're on the Performance tab, it's just not quite there yet. You really can't ask it to do more than one thing at a time. So here we are, we're on the Performance tab. Obviously we have 5800X, 6900 XT, 16 gigabytes of RAM, running at 3800 megahertz. Everything looks good. But that hard drive is pinned at 100% usage. We aren't even doing anything. We're literally updating Steam. Imagine trying to play a game right now when it's just trying to update Steam. Good Lord. I feel like this is gonna turn into more of a why you shouldn't be using a hard drive period video than why you shouldn't be using a hard drive with Cyberpunk video. So this video was actually inspired by my booting games off an SD card is fine unless you do this video, where I was playing Cyberpunk, and if I downloaded a game in the background while I was playing Cyberpunk, the game would just break. Like, full stop, you would get into situations where you were lagging with over 200 FPS, and you would end up clipping through the ground, you would end up clipping into the ground, and then quickly ricocheting off the ground and flying off into outer space. All kinds of really cool glitches. So go ahead and check that video out if you wanted to boot games off your SD card. Obviously, it's fine, just don't do anything else on that SD card at the same time. Okay, so we've been booted in for like a whole 5 minutes now, and it's still just pinned at 100%. So I'm gonna go ahead and fire up Cyberpunk and show you that the game isn't unplayable currently. But then we're going to ask it to do a few more things and completely break the game. And here comes the coil whine. Get subscribed. So initially we're going to use the slow hard drive mode just to try to give the game its best chance possible. Now, I don't fully understand how slow hard drive mode works, admittedly. It seems like it might cache some more things that are important to the game. I'm not sure why it doesn't just do that to begin with, but maybe it's to cause less read-write action in a solid-state drive than it otherwise wouldn't. I don't know. I'm purely speculating on how slow hard drive mode works. God, this game takes so long to load on a hard drive. Come on. Okay, so after what seems like an eternity, we are finally in the game. I'm missing the door on my car. So let's start driving. I mean, we're still pinned at 100% hard drive usage, but the game isn't all that bad. Like, we're getting over 200 FPS, surprisingly. There's plenty of other cars running around. There's not a lot of civilians. Like, we're not seeing a lot of pedestrians walking the sides here. I say that as some more load in. Overall, the game, it's not unplayable. Like, it doesn't look that broken, but we're really taking a best case scenario here as far as booting off of and playing on a hard drive. It's not always going to be like this to where literally the only game being installed on this hard drive is Cyberpunk. Something you might see from me just driving quickly is that it does tend to not load in pedestrians until I'm like right up on them. Okay, we're getting some cool glitches there. Breakdancing car glitch. That one's new for me. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, you can drive around. We're not falling through the map. We still see some pedestrians. We see other cars, even though when other cars load in, they tend to not have all of their textures yet. This would be a best case scenario for playing on PS4. It's literally only having this game installed on your dying old PS4 hard drive. Luckily for me, my PS4 didn't get all that much usage. Like, I literally only used it to play, like, some racing games. Driving around seems okay. I really can't fault it for this. But let's break it. I'm going to go ahead and start downloading Grand Theft Auto 5 in the background. So now we're downloading a game in the background that's probably not going to be done for another 2 hours. And just start driving around Cyberpunk and see what happens. We still have slow hard drive mode on, by the way. You can really tell that the cars around me are not loading in with all of their textures. Shoot, even my car seems kind of buggy. Still not that bad. So let's go ahead and turn off that slow hard drive mode. It's not even loading in my cursor. Come on, give me the cursor for the menu screen. Oh well, I guess we're just not gonna get it. Oh, there it is. All right, slow hard drive mode off. Downloading a game in the background. What could possibly go wrong? So almost immediately it stops loading other traffic. It's okay, we didn't need other traffic. Definitely no pedestrians. Get little hitches every now and then. You start noticing that the advertisements in game, like just the screens that have advertisements on them, are either blank or they say missing texture, stuff like that. Still, surprisingly enough, the game has not broken yet. There's a lot of missing textures though. There's a lot of things that would be on the side of the road here that I'm currently running over that, like if I stop, like you think this is okay because I can still drive around, but if I stop and let it start loading things just start popping up. It's just gonna take a really long time. Oh, we got some enemies over there. We got pedestrians just walking in the middle of the street. The buildings don't still look very detailed. You know, we got some traffic loading in. But once you get out of that zone, you start losing those assets all over again. People start going away. Again, no traffic. Things on the side of the road stop loading in. All kinds of really cool stuff. Oh, did the game crash? I think the game crashed. Yep, the game crashed. Let's go ahead and pause our download and reopen Cyberpunk. It crashed so hard that it didn't even give me the bug splat message. It still thinks it's running. Just load the game back up real quick. And by real quick, I mean a couple of minutes. Oh, hey, look, the hard drive has finally calmed down. Just go ahead and load up a new car. All right, so who's ready for this game to be completely broken? And by completely broken, I mean just lose every asset known to man. Let's go ahead and run Crystal Disk Mark at the same time. So as some of you might know, Crystal Disk Mark is meant for checking the read-write speed of your storage device. It's also really good for making sure that the device even works or is working properly. But almost immediately after starting that, we have lost every form of asset in the game. Like, there's no other cars. We're losing textures on the ground. Like, the road doesn't even look like a road anymore. I really feel like there's like a speedrun strat somewhere in here where during a certain part you slow down your hard drive to make it so there's no traffic so you can drive faster. I don't know, it just seems funny. So you end up getting into situations like this where the game is playing at a perfectly stable 200 FPS, but it's lagging. Because it's using this time, I'm guessing, to get more assets. And I think this is like a worst case scenario to where sometimes it doesn't get the asset properly from, say, even your solid state drive, and you end up with a situation where you clip through the floor. Like, that's where the bug comes from, is some kind of storage device failure. But yeah, this is terrible. This is PlayStation 4 graphics on a nearly $2,000 machine. Yeah, we're really starting to clip through the floor here. Oh, we're good. We're good. I even uploaded a video onto the Cyberpunk subreddit of me just falling through the floor, and people were commenting on it as, why is there no other cars? Why are there no pedestrians? Well, simple, it can't load them. So yeah, guys, this is just what I have found to be the worst thing you can do for Cyberpunk, is putting it on slow storage, or, you know, putting it on some storage device and doing something else in the background to where you end up in a situation where it can't load the assets for the game, and you end up clipping through the floor. Once again, it starts up doing a different test, and we're back to lagging like crazy. I can even like angle the camera through the floor, which you really shouldn't be able to do. I wonder if we're gonna get a rebound here where we pop up and fly through. I think we are. Oh, or we can pass straight through the ground. Oh, there it is. We end up popping through the ground. I feel like that's where a lot of the driving bugs are coming from. You see a lot of videos where people just randomly are driving along and then they just shoot up into the sky because they bounced off some random asset that wasn't loaded. And I am not saying that this is okay. This game in its current state has a lot of problems, but I really feel like it is a good game and people should try playing it at least because it is a very enjoyable experience. Like, I enjoy the game thoroughly and I hope other people could find that same enjoyment in it, just as long as they're not running into bugs every 10 seconds because unknowingly they just put it on a slow hard drive because a lot of people use hard drives as just some extra space. It's just what people do. So yeah, if you thought this video was interesting or helpful, go ahead and leave us a like. Leave us a comment on what kind of storage device you're booting Cyberpunk off of and what kind of glitches you've seen. And like always, guys, get subscribed, and I'll see you next time.